Good evening, guys. I'm Chris, and welcome back to this Wednesday's episode of Rift Amps. Right, Q&A time. We've got loads and loads of questions and comments that have come in. Lots about the Christmas special, but lots about other things as well. I apologise if I don't get to you, or I didn't get to answer your question. Can't do them all. A lot of the questions are similar, so if I answer someone else's question that's a similar question to one that you've asked, it's just that I've lumped them all together. You know, if I get 10 questions on a certain subject, I'm not going to answer it 10 times, right? You get that. You're not stupid. You understand how it works. Anyway, Midnight Hour says, Fender Deluxe reverbs are known for being overly bass heavy and farting out at volume. Yes, because they should run 6L6s. Apart from converting to run on different tubes, I have found the Eminence Alessandro GAC 64 to be a great way to tame the bottom end. Have you tried these speakers? Yes, I've tried them. I really don't like them. Very, very rarely am I quite opinionated on stuff, and often I will say, if it works for you, fantastic, that's the answer. If it doesn't work for you, fantastic, that's the answer. Find something else. But I really don't like that speaker, but other people do. Fine. For me, it didn't do what a good speaker does. I didn't like the way it broke up. I didn't like the top end on it. I didn't like the bottom end. I thought the bottom end was stiff, but in a really unforgiving way. And I tried it in some vintage style amplifiers, so it wasn't for me. But I can imagine there are some players out there who would really like that. So yeah, but for me, it wasn't a good speaker. I didn't like it. But you know, that's just one man's opinion. But if it works for you, great, fantastic, go for it. But really, if you've got a deluxe reverb that you think has got a weird bottom end, which they do, especially at volume, just convert it to run 6L6s and bask in the glory. Well, it snowed, but you wouldn't exactly call it a winter wonderland, would you? Is that the best we can manage? Antero Telila. I hope I pronounced that properly. Hi Chris, I wish you a very good new year. And you too. I've watched your Bassman 135 project. If I understood, you're fixing this Bassman for your own use. Yes, that's correct, yeah. Does it still have to have an IEC socket for mains when an amp is not for commercial use? In my honest opinion, it's like butchering a piece of history with a big hole for the IEC. However, you're also searching an original vintage Fender knob from 70s. Something doesn't add up. If the originality is already gone, why? Best regards, Mr. JT. So yes, you're right, it is my amp, it's for me, it's not for anybody else. And this actually goes on to answer a lot of questions that I get about why I use IEC sockets in my amplifiers, why I prefer to use them, why I do use them, am I required to use them, all that kind of stuff. So I'll get to your questions first, and then we'll get on to the rest of it. Does it still have to have an IEC socket for mains when the amp is not for commercial use? Well, on a piece of vintage gear, no, you can keep it as it is, as long as it fulfills the basic safety requirements, and it would pass. Then yeah, you don't have to fit an IEC socket. In my opinion, it's like butchering a piece of history with a big hole for the IEC. Well, it already had a big hole for the voltage selector switch, so you know, I only had to enlarge that hole slightly with a proper cutter, and it used the original mounting holes, didn't it? I think, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it's not butchering a piece of history. This is an undesirable amp in really poor condition, and fitting an IEC socket is a reasonable and sensible safety upgrade for that amplifier. All right. However, you're also searching an original vintage Fender knob from the 70s. Yeah, well, because the aesthetic look of the amp from the front is something to consider, but the safety of the amplifier for something on the rear panel is a different category and a different consideration. So, yeah. Right. IEC sockets. Should we do this? Should we talk about them? So, EU and UK law requires a mains powered appliance to have what they call a disconnect device, and it says for a single piece of single phase equipment, so not three phase, for single phase equipment, you must, not should or can or whatever, must be able to disconnect both the live and the neutral at the same time. That's the supply. Now that disconnect does not mean switch. Okay, there are other ways to do it. They use the word disconnect for a very particular reason, and that's what an IEC socket does. Okay, when you plug in and plug out of it, both the live and neutral are disconnected at the same time. And if you read the wording of the regulations as they're written, you could then say, well, if that's my disconnect device, I then don't need an on-off switch, which is kind of bizarre, right? Captive mains cables is the other way of doing it, and they are legal too. You can use a captive mains cable. But if you use a captive mains cable, there are some legal things that you have to do. The first one is that it has to have a minimum of 2 levels of strain relief, one at the chassis or internal to the chassis, and one external, so to the side of the cabinet or something like that. You're going to have at least 2 levels of strain relief. You can have more, but you're going to have a minimum of 2. Your safety earth wire needs to be longer than both the live and the neutral that are inside. So if someone trips on the cable, for example, and pulls it out, you've got 1 level of strain relief to protect, and if that fails, the second level of strain relief should protect, and if that fails, then you're going to be literally pulling the live and the neutral out from inside the chassis, and therefore there's a chance it could short to the chassis. So therefore your safety earth, has to be the longest remaining of those 3 conductors. Okay, so that one remains connected for the longest in the event of a pullout. And you'll often see, and this is how I know people don't read the regulations, because you'll see professional builders selling amplifiers, and you'll see chassis gut shots, and they've got a captive mains cable. They've only got 1 level of strain relief, and the safety earth wire, your earth wire, is really, really short compared to the length of the live and the neutral. So, and if they've read the regulations, it's quite easy to read. They know not to do that. And of course, then with a captive mains cable, your on-off switch must switch both of those at the same time. So there's all those considerations to take in, but you can use a captive mains cable. The other thing that the regs say, and I'll put the wording up on the screen now because I can't quite remember it off the top of my head, but if you use a captive mains cable, you must also provide a place for you to store that for the plug and the cable for transport. Now in a combo, that's really easy. You can use the inside of the cabinet in between the slot, put it into the base, and that's fine. But on a head, that's a bit more difficult because you've also got to make sure that the end user minimises any shock or burn risks from hot valves or tubes, right? So you have a rear panel, and therefore how are you going to easily store, it's got to be easily accessible, your mains cable if it's captive in the back of a head, right? And again, that's another way that I know that other builders haven't read the regulations. So, but when you have an IEC socket, you haven't got to worry about any of that. You can have an on-off switch that just switches the live if you want, because your disconnect device is the IEC socket itself. You can then go further and actually, like I do on this Ainsley Lister signature, and have a switch that is on, standby, off in one switch. Oh, fantastic. So now I don't need two switches on the front panel. I can do it with one because I've used an IEC socket. Okay. Also with an IEC socket, you're not limited by the length of mains cable that the user has to use or can use. If they have a 2 meter 6 foot cable, great. If they want a longer one, well, they haven't got to take it to a tech to get it swapped out. They can just pop down to the electronics store and buy themselves a longer or shorter cable for their needs. So it's easier for the user. With the IEC sockets, you can, as I often do now, use them ones that have got the built-in mains fuse, so it's all in one nice enclosure, so I don't need to use a separate mains fuse. Are there any downsides to IEC sockets? No. I mean, the only one really is that it takes up a bit more space than a captive cable, but that's far outweighed by all the positives of IEC sockets. So that's why I use them. They're safer. They allow me to do more things inside the chassis. I haven't got to faff around with creating storage pockets for mains cables. I can just switch the live on my on-off switch if I want, because my disconnect device is the IEC socket itself. And generally it's safer and it's a cleaner look, so that's why I do it. So that's why I do them. I hope that all makes sense. And I hope I haven't confused anybody. Right, we're making good progress on this Ainsley Lister signature. So the board is now all wired in. I've just got to do the rest of my transformer wires, my heater wires, dual light, and then my flying leads. This is from the effects loop, and I've got the ones from the tone stack and the inputs and stuff like that. So yeah, nearly done with this one now, which is good news. But I do need to take a break from it because I do need to start the recap on the AMPEG B15. Juaramu? I'm really sorry, I'm terrible with pronunciations, as you all know now. He says, mate, any day of the week you don't work. As an amp builder aficionado, just wanted to express my gratitude for your videos and wisdom. Thanks so much. Beyond that, my appreciation for your work ethics as well. Regardless of what we do in life, I reckon we could all take a page from your book. Happy New Year and best wishes. So there's that one. And also Cancosaurus says, when do you sleep or have time to race? If there is a partner involved, I hope there's time for them too. Happy New Year, Chris. All of the videos are greatly appreciated. Yeah, so I'm really positive about having a good work-life balance. And it helps that I really love my job. I couldn't think of anything better than coming in and doing this every day. But I also know when to stop. And if I'm having a bad day, or I'm not feeling well enough, or whatever it is, I don't want to be messing around with mains powered appliances if I'm not feeling 100%. So I don't. So I take time off. I also know it's important to get away from work and do other things. I've always used the analogy that a three-legged stool is the most stable, and that's how your life should be. You need to have a really good work life, a really good home life, and a third leg to your stool. And what's that third leg? Well, it should be a hobby. It should be something that's completely separate from the other two, that you can focus some energy and attention and headspace and all that kind of stuff to. Now, some people go and play five-a-side football or have a sport or whatever it is, darts or snooker, or they some people go line dancing or whatever it is. Some people join a local singing group. Yeah, they have their own third leg, because if you don't have that third leg, your stool falls over. And so that's how I try and do things. I always try and keep, and I like to have those balanced as well, so equal time to all three. So, I do my 8 hours a day at work. I have good home life with Mrs. Rift, which we'll talk about in a minute. And I have a good hobby as well, which is my racing, I absolutely love it. And the racing for me is not just going out and racing. It's about building the car, running it, maintaining it, and all the things that go with it. So I have a really strong three-legged stool for my life. And if I'm struggling with one of the two, I'm bored at home or whatever, I'll go and do one of the other two. And often I'll pop into work here to the workshop to either do my own amp stuff or work on race car stuff. I've always got cylinder heads to mess around with, bits to build. I like to buy spare parts, use spare parts online and refurbish them. So when they do break on the car, I've got a good known used spare ready to go. Home life, well, yes, so Mrs. Rift and I have been together, we're coming up on 16 years now. We are unmarried and we don't plan to get married. We don't think you need to get married to spend the rest of your life together, which is our priority and what we want to do. If that comes up in the future, maybe we will, but it's not a priority for us. It's not urgent, we just want to spend the rest of our lives together. We love each other's company and we have a really good, strong relationship. I have a daughter from a previous relationship who is now, in fact, by the time this video comes out, it will be her 20th birthday. So she's grown up, she moved out, she went to university, she's studying a fantastic degree, and she's just an amazing person. Now, Mrs. Rift and I don't want any more children. Well, I don't want any more children. Mrs. Rift doesn't want any children. She's so we're perfectly suited in that way too. So for me, it's just about earning a decent living, doing the job I love, having a really good hobby, and having a really good home life with very little stress. So yeah, and I balance it out really well. I think can always try and do things better. If I get 1 or 2 holidays a year, maybe a couple of mini breaks, get to go and do my racing, but crucially get to come in and really enjoy the work I do on a day-to-day basis, help musicians get better tone, fix their gear, build nice amplifiers, and not have the stresses of a corporate job or anything like that, then I'm thumbs up, quids in, couldn't be happier. So long may it continue. And actually, this YouTube stuff has brought a whole new level of enjoyment to my job and what I do and creating videos for you guys. I absolutely love it. It's great. So my big tip to you guys is work on your third leg of your stool. Get yourself a really good hobby that you do away from everything else. Whatever it is, just make sure it's healthy and morally right. Okay, don't get into weird stuff. Keep your home life happy. And if you don't enjoy your job, find a job that you do, which is here. Okay, so I've got to do where's the recap kit? From our good friends at Flip Tops. Here it is. So we've got the multi-section can cap here, which is down there. So I need to take a photo first so I know where all the wires are going. Then I'm going to have to drill out the rivets, I think. Yeah, probably. And I can get that thing replaced. We've got the dynamite stick one here. And the one they've supplied is much, much smaller. So maybe we'll find a different mounting solution for that, because you see it's on this band here. So we might need to do like we did on the V4B and use a little bit of tag strip to that mounting point just here. Maybe we'll do that. And what else have we got? There's 2 little bias caps here, and it's underneath there as well. So it's just the 4 caps to do, really. Then I'm happy to fire this thing up. I need to test the valve because I think one of those 6L6s is dead. Fire this thing up and do a test, give it a good service, see where we are with it. Craig Hillrich says, have you detailed your desoldering tool in a video? Perhaps a short review would be in order, as it looks like a slick tool that I will be ordering. The latest I purchased has only temporary vacuum and sometimes spits molten solder back onto work surface. So I've got a hell of a history with desoldering tools. So I used to have a really, really expensive, top of the line, did everything kit, and it was rubbish. It was terrible. Um, at least for the money you paid for it. I mean, if it was 25% of the price, I probably wouldn't have complained about it. Would have been happy with it. But it was very expensive, and it was utterly crap. Just useless. It was always breaking. It was always blocking up. Um, the tip was never the temperature it said it was. It was just rubbish. And I tried some others, and I just didn't get on with them. So I went back to the desoldering pens, the vacuum pens, and I used those for years and years. But when you use something long enough, you start to get annoyed with them, I guess, as you do. And the problem I had with those is that I guess that most people do. They're always blocking up at the worst time. I completely messed this wire up. Hold on, that's better. So you're forever unclogging them, and even then they would work. The springs inside would break. And so I was ordering some other bits, and I saw this one that I've got here. It was up for sale, and I think it was about 80 quid, probably about $100 US dollars. And I saw it, and I thought, I'll give it a go because it's cheap, and because it's cheap, I will forgive some of its shortcomings. And if it's good, then we'll celebrate that. And it's unbranded, so it's probably Chinese made. I changed the nozzle to a different size. Don't worry, it's off. The glass tube cracked on it, but it still pulls vacuum. And it's been an absolute revelation. Revelation. Yeah, revelation. It's brilliant. And if it breaks, the bits are cheap and they're available. But it just works. It says it's 24 volt, 90 watt, but it's not 90 watt. There's no way that's putting out 90 watts of heat. But it does work. Sometimes I have to use my soldering iron just to help with the heat on it. But for the work I do with it and the amount of times I desolder stuff, because I never make mistakes, it's perfect. It's great, and it's got a standby mode, so it will sit there idling at 200 degrees Celsius, and you pull it out, and it quickly warms up, and it just works. And I clean it out every week, and it's just fine. It's good. So I bought it from a place called Switch Electronics in the UK. And until it breaks, I'm going to keep using it because it's not bad for the price you pay. It's an 8 out of 10. That's what I'd rate it at. Whereas if that was 500 quid, it would be a 2 out of 10. But again, it's the price you pay. So yeah, it's very good. Love it. Big fan. Let's start with this one then. Okay, so with positive end, red wire, comes down to a point on the board. Black wire goes down to a point on the board as well. I want to keep the flying leads there, but we don't want the cap. So I can just snip those. Easy enough, look. That lighting good? Yeah, lighting's fine. Okay, so 1/4 inch. That was a nut. There she is. Look, you can see she's definitely spewing her guts out. 1976? December 76, is that right? I can never remember how to read the date codes on these. I could look it up, but I'm not going to. Yeah, we're not going to use that clamp again. We'll put some tag strip in. reuse the original mounting hardware, put the cap on that, and then run the wires to it. Can't please everyone. Lots of comments from people like Lucas who say, sorry man, but this video series, the Basement 135, drags on too long. John Burns says, nothing wrong with the longer format videos. Glad you kept the original chassis, adds character. Can't wait to see the cabinet when it comes back from being recovered. Someone else said, I don't like the longer videos. Some people say they do like the longer videos. I just can't win, can I? If I put a short video out, someone complains it's too short. If I put a long one out, someone complains it's too long. What do you want from me? Well, you haven't got a choice. I'm putting out what I'm putting out, and you'll just suck it up. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a professional video maker. I just film what I do and slung it all together and upload it, and hopefully you not like it. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess this is YouTube, isn't it? So if we say those two there, yeah? So we'll have the centre mount and then two either side, and that's kind of the correct width, isn't it? Love it. That'll do nicely. Talking about the huge resistor in the Basement chassis, I know hindsight is 2020. You could have cut the new tag strip as long as that long wire round resistor for proper support with no leads trailing awkwardly back behind its body. I was shouting at the screen. Great watching you sort out this Basement. Yeah, I know. Problem is, I'm trying to find that balance between originality and functionality, right? So I agree with you. Yeah, it could have been longer. Could have done it that way. Maybe I will in the future, because this amp isn't going to be finished when I fire it up. Nobody else is going to buy it from me, right? So and I want to keep it for a long time. So I will keep modding it and tweaking it and improving things as I go in the future. One plan that I do have in my mind is to kind of use it as a test bed as well, so for new ideas and projects and things. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll do that in the future. But yeah, I'm sorry. It's just the way I did it. I feel like we should mount it this side. Just tack solder that into place. Okay, now the original cap, the terminals were heat shrunk and protected. So I think we should do the same. So I come down from the top onto it like that. Yeah. Are we happy with that? Just reroute that slightly. I think that's great. Fantastic. Cool. What else do I need to think about whilst I'm in here? Well, obviously I know those other caps I'm going to do. I think there's also a death cap on this amp, because it is a US voltage model. I think tucked behind there is the death cap. So I'm going to have to pull the schematic for this amp and have a look and just double check everything. But that will come out if I do need to. It's already had... Actually, that's a good point. It's already had a 3-prong conversion. Although that's not looking too clever, is it? So we'll just do some investigation. That might already be out of circuit. I need to find out. If it's not, it's coming out. What else have we got in here? Not much for the time being. I'm going to carry on with the rest of the cap job. 1, 2, 3, off camera. I might show you the results in this video. It might be in the other video. Depends. But yeah. Progress. Jim Castillo, who is a regular commenter, welcome back Jim, says Happy New Year, Chris. And to you. If you have to raise your prices due to material costs going up, it is the proper thing to do. Well, yeah, I mean, it has to be, right? That is how the rest of the world does it, yeah. I think customers should understand that Rift amps are hand-built and hand-wired and quality. Well, yeah, I mean, that's... you know, as I said, I'm not trying to be a millionaire. I'm just trying to earn a living. And if I can earn... you know, my outlook is, right... make sure I word this right so I don't come across like an idiot. My outlook is... I don't want to earn less money than the year before. I'm quite happy to earn the same amount, adjusted, you know, slightly for inflation, I guess. If I want to earn more money, I do more work. I don't try and make more money out of each piece of unit, if possible. So, you know, if I need to earn an extra couple of grand a year, I need to take on more work. What I don't do is try and, you know, milk every penny or cent out of each amp that I build. I don't think that's the right way to do it. You know, my other thing that I always say to people is, what can I do today that ensures that you, the customer, comes back to me again next time, whether that's to buy an amp or to have an amp service. So, and I think part of that is to not overcharge people, which I don't. I think you charge a reasonable amount and do a decent job, and you'll be fine. And that's kind of the way I do things. So yeah, it's you know, the prices on my amps did go up, but not all of them. So I had, on some amps like my PR range, they all went up by around £100 each UK price, which is because cabinet costs, transformer costs, component costs, everything's gone up. Valves have gone up again, and so those amps had to go up. Some amps didn't go up; they remain the same. Some amps, the head versions went up, but the combos didn't. Stuff like that. So, you know, I have to look at the cost of everything and work out what's a reasonable amount to charge, what's a reasonable amount of money that I need to make to run the business and also pay myself enough to live on. You know, that's all. So you've got to take this into account. But yeah, you are right, Jim. Customers should understand that Rift amps are hand built and hand wired. You know, I do everything to order. It's very, very rare that I build something for stock because my order book is always full. So I'm always building orders that people have, you know, placed and pay the deposit on. Like I'm doing now. I'm working on an Ainsley Lifter signature, and the chap that this one is for, you know, has been waiting for this, and you know, he deserves that I build this to the absolute highest standard I can. And you know me, you know, and I've said this before, I try and build every amp better than the last one in some respect, whether that be component quality or the lead dress on it, or the process that I use to do something or other. I try and improve every amp as I go, one at a time. Continuous product or professional development, I guess you'd call it. Because I think if you're not doing that, you shouldn't be doing this job. If you're not trying to improve yourself and your product and how you do things, what are you doing? Why are you taking people's money? You must be trying to improve in every area all the time. So yeah, thanks Jim, I really appreciate it. Jagstar says, I just wanted to say that I love your laid back approach. Well, thank you. Regarding the Christmas special, he's in the keep the chassis camp as well. While the metal may be thinner than it should have been, it's nice to keep things original when possible. And I think that's the key, right? Quick tangent. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's like Trigger's Broom, this thing, or what is it, the Ship of Theseus, or whatever it was called. You may as well build a new amp from the beginning. Well, if you look at restorations in the automotive world, people don't even bat an eyelid when people fit new parts as part of a restoration. It's absolutely fine, it's par for the course. But when it comes to an old amplifier, people lose their shit, if you don't fit the original caps or whatever. And I just think, look, service items can be replaced. And if they need replacing, then you replace them. Pots, sockets, valves, caps, resistors. If they're no longer serviceable, they need replacing. And that's what I'm doing on that amp. Bits that can be kept and are still good to go, reuse them, and that's what I'm doing. And that's a reasonable approach to take, I think. It's, as I said, if it was a customer's amp, I might do things differently, but it's not, it's mine. And so that's what I'm doing. But yeah, nice one, Jag. The Johnsonite says, what's the tool you're using with the drill press to fasten the eyelets? Tried to find something similar, but only ones to use by hand came up. Well, that's what that is. It's a hand one. But rather than hammering them in place, I stick them in the drill press, spin it around, and you get a better finish. That's all it is. We call them eyelets, but sometimes they're called rivets. Or they're from the rivet family, and it's called a swaging tool. That's all it is. Well, I've had that one for years. I can't even remember where I got it from. But if you search for an eyelet swaging tool, I'm sure it will come up. But yeah, that's what it is. It is designed to be hammered in. Or that's one way of using it, but I just use it in the drill press. I find it easier.
Well, in the space of a day, the sun has come out, the snow's gone, and we've got one of those beautiful blue sky winter days again. No sign of tremolo yet, but, oh yeah, tremolo news, I forgot to say. I was talking to the farmer. She is 15 years old, apparently. She's always lived on this farm, or they think she's 15 years old because that's when she turned up. She arrived 15 years ago, started having kittens. They did have a spade at some point, which is probably why she's managed to last so long, because she's not worn out, bless her. But she's around somewhere, probably in that hedgerow hunting. But yeah, 15 years old, can you imagine?
So I often get asked if I've got any good YouTube channel recommendations for you guys. Now, most of you, I assume, have either found me or found the main other channels on YouTube around amp teching and stuff like that. So you probably have all heard of Psionic, Brad's Guitar Garage or Gear Garage, Fazio's channel, Uncle Doug, D-Lab, and there's some other more popular common ones as well. So I'm not going to recommend those to you because you probably know about them anyway. But there's 3 channels that I think you all should check out for various different reasons. The first one is a guy in Texas called El Paso Tube Amps, and I love his channel. It's just a guy in his workshop testing amps, trying things out, learning new stuff, relearning old stuff. trying to deepen his own understanding of everything, using test gear, and just showing off how stuff works. And it's fantastic. And if you like those sort of longer format stuff, brilliant. Just sit down and just watch him. He does a great one comparing two different output valve types at the same bias point in a hi-fi amp. Runs them all at 50 watts at a certain level of distortion, and he's looking at his spectrum analyzer, and you can see, is it 6L6s versus, no, it's EL34s versus KT66s, I think. But anyway, it's fantastic. Go watch El Paso Tube Amps. Absolutely brilliant channel. Second channel is a guy up in Canada who does radio repair. The old valve radios, tube radios, like the old American 5, Hetz, Super Hetz, all that sort of stuff. And it's called Jim's Radio Shop. He doesn't get very many views on his channel, and I don't know why, because it's just incredible to watch. His process is just brilliant, because what he will do is he never assumes anything. Never assumes anything. He'll have a radio in for repair. It's got all the old wax caps in, for example. He never assumes that the valves are knackered, or the tubes are knackered. He never assumes that that cap is bad, even though it probably is. But what he will do is he will thoroughly test the amplifier electrically and its performance. Check that it receives something. Check that the IF stages are working as they should do. The detector stages, all that kind of stuff. And when he says, right, I'm going to replace this capacitor, for example, he will get a baseline, replace just that one component. Now, it probably needed doing anyway. It's probably way out of service life. But he'll just replace that one bit and then redo all the tests and say, right, what has now changed? Well, this has changed. This has stayed the same. I expected that to change, but it didn't. Why? That's changed, and I didn't expect it to change. Why? Has the performance changed for the better? Yes or no? And why? And so he's constantly learning as he goes. He's never assuming anything. And I just love that. I think that's brilliant. They go on for a while, so prepare to sit down and watch and enjoy. But he could take ages and ages doing a simple recap on an amp. But you learn so much. It's just incredible. So yeah, El Paso and Jim's Radio Shop. Go check those two channels out. Third channel I'm going to recommend to you is not a radio guitar amp tech channel at all. He's one of the best diagnosticians I've ever come across, but he works in the automotive space, and the channel is called Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics, and it's a guy called Ivan, and he is purely data driven. So all of his diagnoses are done based on data alone. There's no hunches, no it could be this, could be that. He won't call a replacement part as being faulty or a part that needs replacing until he's 100% guaranteed that that is the fault. And he does it through data collection and testing and understanding of circuits and systems and stuff like that. And it's just brilliant. If you want to see how a proper true diagnostician works, go check out Ivan's channel. He did a multi-part Christmas special last year, just gone, on a Ford van, 1.6 petrol Ford van that had a number of problems, and it's probably one of the trickiest. It's probably why he put it as a Christmas special, because it's one of the trickiest, craziest things. And I won't tell you what the final fault was, but I would never have got there. You would never have got there. No one I know would ever have got there. Just incredible. And there's a great scene where he's halfway through the series. He's sat in the van in the parking lot of the Ford dealership, about to go in and spend hundreds of dollars on a replacement part for this van. And I reckon every other every other tech would have done that, would have bought that part and fitted it, but not Ivan, because the data didn't prove it. And so he drove away and carried on diagnosing until he was 100% sure. And it's just incredible. You want to see that process done to the best level. Go watch it. He does this thing where the ultimate repair for him is what he calls no parts required, where everyone else would replace a sensor. If he reads the codes and checks the data and he says, "Oh, I'm going to replace that sensor," and he says, "No, do these other checks first. Do your basics, gather your data, and if you can repair a car, no parts required, that's like the ultimate, because then he's proven beyond any other doubt, beyond reasonable doubt that it didn't need parts replacing, and people are replacing parts, firing the parts cannon far too quickly. So if you're really into improving your own diagnostic procedure and seeing how other people do it, yes, it's not guitar amp stuff or radio stuff, but you can still learn from those procedures and those thought processes and those workflows about how to do things. And I do all the time. That's why I watch it, because you have to learn to think differently to diagnose things. And when you get to watch someone like that working, he's the guy that you go to if your dealer can't repair it, your local specialist can't repair it, your mobile technician can't repair it. He's the last resort, and he gets the craziest case studies that he just and sometimes cars go to him and the problems are really simple, but the other people haven't followed the correct processes, and you just think, wow. So yeah, amazing. So those are the 3 channels: El Paso Tube Amps, Jim's Radio Shop, and Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you very much for watching once again. As always, please give this video a thumbs up. All your comments, questions down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you know when new videos come out. I've got some more basement videos and more train wrecking incoming. Join the channel if you're feeling super generous like these guys were, and I will catch you all at the next one.